Individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Supernatural, metaphysical, paranormal. All those things you've been wondering about? Are you ready to go deeper into the realms of the unknown? I hope you've got your walking shoes on, because life is an adventure, and this is the journey. Come on, let's go. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and hey, we are the She Squatchers. I'm Jen Cruz, your host, and I've got both of my trusty teammates on the line with me. I've got Jenna Grover.
Well, hello, everyone.
And Tammy Trikel.
Hey, everybody.
Woo! We've got a really fun show for you guys tonight. We've got a very special guest. John Yost is joining us. Hi, John. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, ladies. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your listeners' time, too. Thank you.
Oh, well, I was so excited that you would come on to our show.
Oh, sure.
We normally are talking about Bigfoot
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So tonight's a little bit different. Can you tell us why?
I don't know. I'd like to talk about Bigfoot, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Spurred my interest right up.
It's a live show, right? So anything can happen.
Heck yeah.
Right.
Except the things you told me not to say before we got on the air.
Right.
Right. Yeah. We're talking about a very sensitive topic. It's misunderstood. It's abused. It's been lied about. There are grifters and charlatans in this world. We're talking about alien abduction, but it's a situation that is happening and has been happening for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And and we can no longer, as a species, ignore it. We have to face it. And that's what I did. And that's what my film is about, Alien Abduction Answers.
And I've watched it, and I really enjoyed it. I really did, and I know Jenna did too.
Yes, I have to say I really, really enjoyed it. It's so much of what you said, it emanated in me, if that makes sense. It just made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the film is it was made excuse me, it was made from an experiencer's point of view. This is one of the reasons that the film is so different than other documentaries in about UFOs or aliens or anything. Most people who make those films are very, very smart. They're a lot smarter than me, and they know all the facts and figures, and they've done all the study and investigation. But usually they're not experiencers themselves. They may become experiencers because they get involved in the phenomena. But originally, their point of view is cerebral. They're intellectual about it. And the second thing is that most of these people who make documentaries like this are not really filmmakers. They're people who want to make a film, and so they hire people or they try to do it themselves and they splice it together. I, on the other hand, am a guy who's been working in the business for over 35 years. So, I've been in front of the camera, behind the camera, in all kinds of different situations. And the second difference is that kind of the spine of this film is my abduction and what it did to me and how it paralyzed me and how it literally crippled me, and I was dysfunctional for a long, long time. And some of that I didn't realize. I just thought it was just me being a jerk. And then it came to a head about 3.5, 4 years ago, and it paralyzed me, and I had to deal with it. And so this film is actually a catharsis for me. It was a kind of an accident that it came about. And so through it, I've gained some sense of peace. And what I'm hoping is that the people that watch it, either if they're interested or if they are experiencers who haven't been able to confront that they find in there some some landmarks, some sense of peace. Not a complete peace with this, because it is crazy and it's insane, and it changes your life and everything, and changes your perspective completely. But I'm hoping to help people at least not run, and to turn around with clear eyes and try to assess what is really going on in their lives.
Very, very good explanation of that.
Yes,
So,
it was a very powerful statement. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
so at what age were you abducted? Like, when did that begin? And
Well, that's a hard question, because the abduction that I remember very clearly all my life was when I was 7 years old. But what I find out through my work and my pursuit of this information is that it happened several times prior to that. So when I was younger. But to answer your question, this film starts when I'm 7 years old, and that was a long, long time ago. These grays are all mine.
well, see, I make mine go away.
No, I've earned them. I've earned them, and Wayne Newton's hair. I just have both of those things.
You're
It
very lucky, by the way.
it
You've
looks
got a nice set of hair.
it looks
Hair.
good on you.
I would
It looks good
be,
on you.
I'm
Yeah.
an average looking
That's the
guy, but I would
hairdo.
be an
Sorry.
ugly bald guy, and I know that. So thank you, God. Thank you.
Mm. Thank you, God, that John's not bald.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go. There you go. So you were 7 years old, the one that you remember.
Mhm.
What? How old do you think what you were when it actually started? Do you have an idea?
I think I was probably a toddler.
A toddler.
Yeah. Um, this this phenomena, it's pernicious and persistent. Um, and also it's interesting how it follows bloodlines.
Hmm.
It's interesting in families that, but I think it's bifold, or twofold. Sorry, I misspoke. I think partly it's because of genetics, but I think genetics is an artifact of something much deeper. There is some sort of consciousness aspect to this that is prevalent among all people that have these experiences, and they might not even realize it. But what you'll find is that people who have had these experiences either have prior or after all kinds of other ancillary phenomena. Maybe, for example, NDEs, they see orbs, they experience the dead, they discover artistic inclinations that they never had before. They know languages that they've never ever, studied. It's a really strange sort of thing. And what I think is that when your paradigm is cracked, meaning that everything that you believe is tilted on its head, then all of a sudden the possibilities open up, and you discover that you are much more than what you appear to be. You are much more. I say often when I speak to people about consciousness, and I know we're kind of taking a left turn, but this is where we'll kind of end up. you know, there is this theory, and I think it's more than a theory. I think it is the truth, is that consciousness itself is primary, meaning that everything is consciousness and we are just artifacts of that. And here's an example. Everyone in your audience, including you three lovely ladies, you've experienced these two things. You've experienced, number one, being in a crowd and feeling like someone's looking at you, and you turn around real quick and somebody's looking at you, or vice versa. Okay, well, that's interesting. Let's compound the difficulty. You've all had the experience where you're thinking of someone and they call you, or vice versa. Okay, now look, if that's you and me, that's called a coincidence. If that's everybody on the planet, that's a condition. Okay, so what does that indicate? What that indicates is that we are not in this bone box. We are somehow here, right? And um, I think the way I would like to say this is, you were three beautiful women who are all wearing blouses, right? You're not blouses wearing three women, right? Because if you took your blouses off and you hung them on the chair, they wouldn't move around by themselves, right? You give them life, okay? So you are a person with a soul or a consciousness back here. And the reason that ESP and mind speak and all these things are possible is because we are literally, our consciousness is outside of our bone box, and we're kind of tapping into that, almost like flesh antennas, and we are tapping into that field. A lot of people have a hard time with that idea. And what I try to say is this, it kind of goes along, and this will maybe a segue into Bigfoot, Sasquatch, is that, a lot of people for many, many years have tried to hunt that entity like an ape. And that hasn't worked out very well. There are artifacts, there are residual, there's evidence, but this entity is smarter than we are somehow, can walk into the middle of a field and evaporate, can somehow send thoughts into people to get the heck away. Okay, so here's what I say to people when we talk about like interdimensional or transdimensional entities. So that's a big topic. And if you ladies have seen my film, I'm not a smart guy. So what I do is I tell little stories that help myself understand these difficult concepts. So here's a little story that's not in the film. Suppose myself and Jen, and we're by a pond, and I stick my big melon in that pond. Well, this fish comes up and he sees and says, "Oh my God, Fred Flintstone's here." No, but he sees this guy. Now, very interesting. Because I'm a filmmaker, everything is nuanced. So watch, let's push in. I don't look like any fish that he's ever seen, right? So he's baffled by this. And I don't move like any fish that he's ever seen, right? Okay, so eventually I have to take a breath and I pop out and I'm telling Jen all about these fish. And we go about our way. This fish goes crazy, calls his little fish friends, talks about this thing. They come. There's no evidence at all. So he's a crackpot and goes off and starts a cult. Okay, let's push in a little further. This fish, when that face literally pierced the veil of its existence, its two-dimensional existence, that pushing into its dimension, it has absolutely no concept that my face is attached to a head, is attached to a neck, to a body, to a consciousness. I have a whole life that has nothing to do with the fish. In fact, I could give a damn about the fish. I'm off, paying taxes. And this is kind of what's happening is we are one of the buckets of experience in this phenomena is that we have entities, consciousness that are purposely pushing into our dimension, interacting with us either through psychic tech or just tech, and they are interacting and then popping back out of existence without leaving a trace. And we are left confounded by this. And so people have called them demons and aliens and gods and angels and all this other stuff. But we are trying to wrap our arms around that experience and also conflating it with other experiences. And this is why, by the way, I think that we as people have such a difficult time studying these things. You have people who are solely, UFOs. This is what I do. Nuts and bolts. This is what I do. Then you have people who are just aliens, and they're all going to eat our children. Okay. Then you have other people who are like, no, this is all love and light. And they're all Palladians and they've healed me and all that. Okay. Same thing with Sasquatch. You have people who are diehard. This is absolutely an ape. This is a missing link. This is what it is. Then you have people who are, no, these are transdimensional and they have psychic powers. And then you have people who are in the middle of all that stuff. Okay. And then you have people who study ESP. I think what's happening is, I think they're all part and partial part of something that's the entirety. And what we're seeing are bits and pieces. Let's go back to that pond. If I put my hand in that pond, that hand is not me. If I put my face in that pond, My face stopped me. If I put my foot in that pond, okay. So the fish experiences 3 different aspects of me. They all look totally different, and yet they all are me. And that's not a perfect example, but this is kind of what I'm coming to the conclusion. This is where my search is leading me. You know, I started off very, very much entrenched in fear, denial. Um, really, it poisoned my life and it crippled me. And what I've discovered is at the end of this, if you're able to kind of face this and settle yourself with it and not be as afraid as you were, you can find some answers. And that's really kind of the moral to the story in my film, Alien Abduction, answers. You know, I get a lot of guff. A lot of people call, oh, Mr. Answerman. No, it's not me giving you answers. It's me searching for these damn answers and me asking the audience to go with me from the very first frame. As you know, since you saw the film, you know, most other documentaries are like third person narratives. You know, they have this kind of clip and you hear Walter Winchell in the background going, back in 1957, you know, that sort of thing, right? But with me, you're in the first frame. It's like you're riding on my shoulder or inside the frame with me. And everything you saw happened. And I think probably the most visceral and the most difficult for me to do and to watch was the regression, because that's raw and it's untouched. It's untouched. So, boy, man, I'm an Irish guy. If we had whiskey, I'd be talking for hours. So I
Do we have any
apologize.
whiskey?
Uh,
Do we have any?
please,
Wait till we
please.
meet in person.
Yeah,
Sure,
really.
sure.
Tammy's our
Anyway,
designated
did I
drinker.
answer your question? I'm
You
sorry. Did
did,
I?
but I know
Yeah,
the listeners are probably like, what is he talking about? Regression.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So maybe you could touch on that.
Sure, sure. What happened was well, maybe I'll tell you a story that's not in the film, and it'll lead to that regression, which will help the audience understand, and maybe you ladies will put some pieces together too.
Okay.
About something happened to me when I was 7, and I lived with it my entire life, and I lied about it, and I was told to lie about it, and I did, and it became easier and easier as I went along, and then as I got older and became a man, hell, I didn't want to tell anybody because you know you'll be a crazy person. But about 4 years ago now, I was on a shoot. As I mentioned, I've been in television and radio and film for many, many years. And I was on a shoot in a place called Borrego Springs, California. It's very flat, very arid. And we had done a night shoot. We were out very late. And we had come back. We rented this big house so I could keep everybody together. We had like 15, 17 people with us. And it was important because, you know, it was like herding cats in the desert. You know, we'll lose these people. And so they were having a nightcap behind this big ranch house that we had rented. And I was with the crew and we were making sure we had duplicates of the film and stuff like this. And I go out and they're going to do a toast. So I raise my glass and I see in the glass this little glint of light. And your mind, you know, you're always trying to name things. You want to put it in a box. This is what we are. We're human beings. This is what we want to own it. We want to control it. So oh, that's the moon. That's what that. Then I went, wait a second. It's not the moon. I'm the producer on this. I scheduled this shoot for a new moon. There's no moon because we wanted to control the light. What the hell? As I drop this is all happening in split seconds. I drop this, and right above the house, the pool is behind me, and the house is here. Right above the house, about 30 feet in the air, was this blue, green, self-luminous thing. It was kind of shaped like an egg, kind of shaped like a pear. And once again, my mind clicks in. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I said, oh, you know what that is? That is a Mylar balloon, like a get well balloon or a happy birthday balloon. And then my mind checks me again and says, wait a second, buddy. That's as big as a Volkswagen. That is not a balloon. And it's 2 a.m. What the heck is that? It was so close I could have thrown a baseball and hit it. So what happens is one of my camera guys had sat down. His name was Scotty. I grabbed him and I turned him and he says, oh my, just then people hear what's going on and they say, "What is that? Oh my God, is that a UFO? What the heck is this?" And my mouth, I mean, jaw just dropped. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And this thing moves so fast. I mean, like that, like this, zip, zip, and it was right above my head. And then something happened. I don't know if it was there a second. I don't know if it was there 10 minutes. I don't know. But I felt a feeling that I had not felt since I was 7 years old. If you've ever been on a beach and the water rolls up over your ankles and it goes back out, it starts to slide that sand out from underneath your feet, and you feel like you're falling backwards, that's the way it felt. And I was petrified, I was terrified. And this thing zips away about 20 feet away. Everybody is still buzzing about, wow, look at this, and then it just starts to drift off into the desert. Now, we were watching it for quite a while, like a minute, minute and a half, because I told you it's very flat there. And everybody is just humming. They love this idea. And I am dying inside. So I make some stupid joke and I go back to the room that was mine. And I'm not proud of this, but what I did was I barricaded the door with my bed and I threw my luggage up on the bed and I sat in a corner and I cried. And I cried all night. It was horrible. And you have to remember, it wasn't this old guy who was not dealing with something well. It was a 7-year-old kid who had never dealt with something. So it came crashing in on me and it was really hard. It was really hard. And I've talked about it so many times. It's amazing to me that I still get emotional when I think about it. So please excuse me. I apologize. Anyway, so as a producer, you have to be very anal retentive. You have to be. Everything's in a box. You get lines and you got times and checking the boxes, and you're dealing with a lot of money. Usually, it's not yours. And so I am angry with myself, and I'm really good at my job. So I have a very fitful night, very little sleep. I get up in the morning. I said, you know what? I'm going to take a hot shower, get a cup of coffee, I'm going to kick butt. I'm just going to go out there and do it. I grab the coffee. I'm going to go outside, and I can't. I literally can't walk outside. I am immediately afraid of big sky and that water. I cannot go outside. Now, at this point, I am so furious with myself. I mean, I am seething. I'm red in the face. And I had to go find locations that day. So I had to go with other people. It was very humiliating. They were saying, "Why are you taking us? You wouldn't listen to us anyway," that sort of thing. And anyway, I get through the shoot. It's another 2 or 3 days. I get back to the East Coast. Thank God for Irish whiskey. And but when I get off that plane, my friends and family, they knew something was wrong with me. And it got so bad. It got so bad that I would get to work very, very early. And I would wait in my car, in my truck, right beside the front door, and wait for somebody to come so I could run and then walk in with them. That's an embarrassing thing. And you have to understand something. You know, I am usually not concerned or afraid of many things. I'm 6'3" and about 270 pounds. Most things leave me alone. I'm not a badass, but most people, they pick on other people. You know what I mean? So this was, it was extremely hard. And it started to it was crucifying me. I couldn't do my job well. I was suffering health problems. It was really manifesting. In fact, in the film, you probably saw, I was pretty fat, pretty fat. And I'm not skinny, but I was, pushing maximum density. And
I'm sorry, I
so,
have to interrupt there. I don't think you were, but okay,
oh,
go on.
that, put your context in. God bless you. So, um, so anyway,
Wait a minute. How much weight have you lost?
in that film, I was almost 400 I was almost I'm sorry. I was 297.
Okay. We've all been on a weight loss journey, us three girls, so you can just join us.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Actually, I
Thank you.
think he's been doing great. You look
Yeah.
fabulous, by the way.
Thank
Yes,
you,
you
ladies.
do.
I probably have 5 filters in here. This is working for me. I'm a
Can
filmer.
I get those filters later? We'll talk. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, back to the
So
show.
anyway, I'm trying to get to this. I'm telling this long story again. I apologize. So smarter people than me would have probably looked for some help. They would have looked for a psychologist or something. And I was just too damn, you know, self-possessed, arrogant, I don't know, stupid, pig-headed. And I was going to fix this myself, right? And so what I do is I I say, well, look, you, Yost, are nobody special. So I'm certain that other people have had experiences like this and they've lived with it. Now I have to admit something. I'm not proud of this either. It shows what a small person I am. At the beginning, I didn't give a darn what experiences people had. I didn't care. What I cared about was how the hell can you go get groceries and live with this thing in your life? How does that make sense? How can you not obsess or lock your doors and hide your bed? How does that? Why doesn't that happen to you? And why is it happening to me? Okay. So that led me to read a bunch of stuff, and that led me to start to talk to people about their experiences, and I would find out from them. That eventually led me to talk about my experiences. And what had happened was, and the ladies who have seen the film, you know this, that I could remember all the details, not a problem. But there was one piece that I could not recall. There's a piece where I confront this entity as a 7-year-old boy, and we literally have an altercation. I mean, I lay hands on this cat and we're fighting, and there's a flash of light and some energy and all these lights and everything else. And I get turned around. I originally was in a bathroom, and I say him, I don't know his name, but its back was in the hallway. And somehow I got interpolated with him. I was in the hallway and he was in the bath. And I couldn't understand it. And I didn't know what had happened. So I was feeling a little bit better about this because I was able to start to talk about it. But then people pointed out to me, hey, John, what happened here? And I was completely nonplussed. I had no idea. And that bothered me because now I was on the path of really finding out. And I thought, you know what? This is not a complete sentence. I need to know. I need to know. So this is when they introduced me to a woman that you met in the film. Her name is Debs Shakti. And Debs, first of all, I would tell you that she is like, you've heard this term Christ consciousness, meaning that somebody who would give their shirt off their back, they would always service to others, this kind of thing. This is the kind of person that she is. She's just extremely loving, extremely giving. All she is about healing people and this sort of thing. And she's a quantum hypnotherapist, and she's been doing it for, 3 decades. So they introduced me to her, and I have to tell you, I'm going to reveal what an idiot I am. Watch. So I told you that I'm not a small person. She's this little tiny elf person, like this little pixie person. And she says, I can, do this and help you. And I'm kind of going, well, little lady, and she looks up at me with this like impish smile and she says, well, we'll see. And so, just cute as a button. And I'm not a misogynist. I was raised with 5 women. I don't know why. I just thought there's no way that I, as trusty as I am, could be broken down that way. And so we did a couple of experiments where she would take me back to, say, my favorite Christmas. And I absolutely could not believe it, how vivid the colors were, how I could hear my mom in the other room making breakfast, how I could smell the fur of the tree. I could hear my sisters fighting over a doll that they wanted, and it was incredible. Remember when you were kids and they used to have that little train around the tree and stuff? I saw it. I could smell the ozone coming off. I said, this is incredible. How can this be? So she had done this with me. Actually, she did this over the phone. I couldn't believe it, like in a Zoom session. I didn't think it was possible. And then eventually she said, okay, I think we're ready that we can, address this issue. And I'm gonna I'm gonna share something with you guys. I was petrified of that. Yeah, I was really petrified. I was petrified that I didn't know what I was going to say, and I was petrified that I already knew what I was going to say.
I'm going to stop you there and we're going to go to a commercial break and come right back and pick up that story because I want to hear the rest.
Yes,
Stay
miss.
tuned, everybody. All right, we should be clear. Yay, you're doing great. I think I could listen
Thank you.
to you all night.
I'll
Oh
put
my
you right
gosh,
to
yeah.
sleep.
No, you are so interesting. I'm with Jen. I'm totally on board. Wow.
Well, thank you, ladies. You're very kind. I appreciate
Yeah.
you. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you for being on and wow, what you've experienced. And
Mm.
I tell you, there's a lot of people out there that can identify with you and your experiences.
I found out that that's the case. And part of the way um, of helping yourself. I don't mean you. I mean yourself. People out
Hmm.
there is understanding that you're not alone. Sometimes you feel so isolated, and that's what I did. I felt completely isolated. And when you're in a void, you make things even bigger and more inflammatory than are. And what
Hmm.
you need is some clarity. And look, it's still scary. It's still out of this world. It's still weird. It's still all those things. But if you can see it with a clearer eye, you feel a little bit better. It's almost like, when I think of like a deep swimming pool, you know, you might be a strong swimmer. You might not be a strong swimmer. But, if you're in the pool and it's dark, you don't know what's down there. You don't know how deep it is. And then if you can see, you say, oh, well, shoot. Well, it's 4 feet over there and I can stand.
Hmm.
Okay, yes, you could still drown, but now you kind of have a grip of what's going on. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a grip.
Well, good. I'm
Trying to
glad
get a
you're getting a
grip.
grip.
All right,
Yeah,
we should be back to the show very soon. I'm waiting for the go.
sure. See, you did this, and I said, I'm going to steal second.
You did good.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Hey, it's the Journey Radio Show, and we're the She Squatchers. Won't you check us out online at shesquatchers.com? And also, please come over to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel at She Squatchers Official. And then you can see all of our other shows and all that fun videos that we do on our expeditions. And hey, we're on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, She Squatchers Official. Please like and follow us there for all the current what's going on with us. So back to the show, we've got John Yost with us. He's done this documentary about alien abduction answers. And he was in the middle of a story when I so rudely cut him off.
No.
Won't you please pick up your story? You were doing your regression.
Yes, miss. So at this point, I don't have a film, and I have no idea that I'm going to make a film. But what occurs to me is I'm starting to feel a little bit more in control of what I'm dealing with here. And I get to this point where I'm about to have this regression, and I am petrified. I'm kind of once again at that kind of point where I'm going to step into the deep water. And part of me, this is really hard to say. Part of me wanted it to be child abuse. I wanted it to be something as mundane as, my father beat me or my mother was abusive. Because at least in that particular case, it's within the framework of normal reality for most people. And they could go, oh, poor kid, of course he's scarred, that makes sense. The moment you say, hey, listen, come on, the empathy there's no, and then people just shut you off. And so you feel isolated, as I was saying off air. So I thought, you know what? At this point, I realized I wasn't isolated. I realized that there were literally thousands, maybe millions of people who had some type of encounter with other. And I thought, I wonder how many people are suffering like I was. I wonder how many people were too scared to even talk about it with friends, with family, with their parents, whatever. I wonder how many people felt it was their fault. All of these hot topic buttons. And I thought, you know what? If I could do this, if I could have the guts to do this, maybe I could be their scaramouche. Maybe I could be their fool, their clown. I'll ask the hard questions that nobody has the guts to ask. And I'll make an ass out of myself. Sorry. I'll make a jerk out of myself. Um, and they can, from the safety of their sofas, touch the remote. And if it's too hot, they turn it off, where they can continue. And so I wanted to record the regression. And Debs was against it. She said, look, kid, we're not playing games. This is not a carnival. We're dealing with your soul. We're dealing with your consciousness. We're dealing with your mind. We're dealing with your health. You can't play any kind of game. And then I told her what my plan was, that I was going to try to use it to help people. And remember how I referred to her earlier about, how she's giving and loving. Well, at that point, she reconsidered and she said, oh, well, okay. And then, after a little bit, she said, okay, let's do it. But then she had all kinds of rules. There couldn't be people in the room. We had to have remote cameras. And I mean, thank God I have all the toys, right? So we daisy chained batteries and remote camera. People couldn't be in the building. And the regression took over 6 hours. And in the film, there's probably about, I say 12 to 15 minutes of it. And I found out who took me. I found out where they took me. I found out what they did to me. I found out that it hadn't been the first time. And I was wiped out. I mean, like mentally, spiritually, physically, just wiped out. And it was so hard on me that I couldn't watch the footage for a couple of days. And then I could only watch it in little bits and pieces. And then finally I watched it incomplete and I said, look, this is going to be the core of this film, the core of this story, because what it is the turning point. The film addresses people, and I'm talking about not ladies like you who have had experiences and have some sort of maturity about it. I'm talking about the world at large. The world at large is filled with ignorance, and I don't mean that derogatorily. I'm talking about they just don't know, right? And so in ignorance, that breeds fear, right? You walk into a dark room and you see something in the corner. You go, oh my, what is that? You turn on the light. Oh, it's your jacket on the chair, right? So you're in that world of fear. And if we could turn the light on a little bit, you could make decisions. You could say, hey, I'm never going back in that room, right? That would be a decision. Might not be very productive, but it'd be a decision you could make. You wouldn't be surprised anymore. Or you could say, hey, I'm not going to be a jerk. I'm going to hang up that jacket so it never happens to me. Or you can actually participate with what's going on. And this is the point. And so I wanted to address the world where it is, which is this ignorance, which breeds fear. And I wanted to shepherd them through, the viewer through that, to the other side, where they have some sense of understanding, so they can make decisions. And the decisions at the end of my film, as you see, are that I'm kind of left still asking questions, but I'm able to ask them and I'm able to hear the answers. Whereas before I was so petrified, like a deer in the headlights, that I was not ready to hear any answers. And even if you would have told me to my face, it would not have registered with me. Never. Um, and so that's what happened. And so the regression, she took me very, very deep, and she took me back to when I was that little boy of 7. And so since we're there, I might as well take us in there. When I was 7 years old, I was the smallest kid in my class. until about high school. Thank God for puberty. um, but I, of course, was in my parents' home, and it was August, and it was very, very humid. I was in my bedroom, which was on the second floor, and all the windows were open. My parents were not very wealthy, and so we didn't have air conditioning. And I woke up in the middle of the night to hear this kind of undulating drone. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'll imitate it. It's kind of like this. Mm. And it woke me up. I'm a little kid. I'm ticked off. I'm tired. I've been playing all day. And I was mad that I couldn't go back to sleep. So I was sitting on the side of my bed and I wiped the sleep from my eyes, and I go to the bathroom. And then I'm getting a drink of water, and the water's it's rolling. I can't understand why. I'm just standing there staring at this water. But eventually I turn it off and I go to the door, to the bathroom door. And when I open the door, there standing in the doorway, facing me was to what my eyes, a 7-year-old boy, was this character I'd seen 1,000 times on television. There was a character on Japanese television called Ultraman. And Ultraman was this silver giant, and he had this oval head and he had these big eyes, and he fought the bad guys. He fought monsters. So I loved Ultraman. I had no fear at all. The only thing weird about this was that Ultraman was my size. And as I said, I was a little kid. So we got very close. And I mean like nose to nose. And then something happened. I referenced that feeling of the sand coming out from underneath my feet. And I felt myself fall. And I become terrified at this moment. And I, like a, I wasn't going to pick a fight with this guy. But what happened was, like a drowning person, I flailed, right? And I lay hands on this cat. And when I do, there's this blinding flash of light and all of these spinning lights, like blue and green and yellow and magenta and all this other stuff. And I'm disoriented, and I'm still fighting. And it felt like I was on a speeding train, or maybe like a carousel that was out of control. And I couldn't make out what was going on. And then I'm in the middle of this fight. And as I'm coming to my senses, I'm still in this fight. But the strange thing was that we had been interpolated. Now my back is in the hallway and his back is in the bathroom. And I'm confused by this, but this is all happening simultaneously. And I go to swing to hit this cat. And he raises his hand and he touches me on my left shoulder. Well, it feels like this wave. Like, have you ever been in the ocean and a wave comes up and hits you in the chest? It just knocks you right down. It felt like that. It hit my shoulder, hit my chest, and I went down like a ton of bricks. And when I did, there was there was a set of stairs behind me. I was on the second floor. This set of stairs, and they were hardwood. And I felt ugly. I mean, up and over and banging off things, and I landed in a heap. Well, my parents are on the first floor. And they come running around, and my dad says, what the hell's going on here? And I'm screaming like a banshee. I'm saying, there's Ultraman upstairs, what? And he hears intruder, right? So he goes up the stairs, and my mom is just holding her son, looking at me, and I am sobbing so hard, like my whole body is shaking. And my father's slamming doors, and eventually he comes to the top of the stairs, and he looks really ticked off. I mean, I've awakened him, and there's nothing there, and all this stuff. So they take me upstairs, and they do what parents do. I don't know if any of you beautiful ladies have children, but you would do this. You would look under the bed, and you would say, hey, see, there's nothing here. Look at the closet. There's nothing here. And eventually they laid me down, and my mom kissed me on the forehead. And I don't know if all the adrenaline had pumped through my body, but I went to like a coma. I was exhausted, and I just fell asleep. Well, the next morning I wake up, and I guess I'm going to date myself here, age myself. Back then, kids today, you can't get them off a sofa. They were playing with their machines, right? But back then, you grabbed a waffle and ran outside. You played all day, right? That was what you did until mom called you for dinner. And so that's exactly what I did. And I was out there, and I felt like I'd been beaten up by a bully. But, it wasn't top of mind. It was, I was throwing a football, I was running around, playing basketball. So my mother calls me in for dinner, and she says, you are absolutely disgusting. because I told you it was very humid, right? She said, we're going to get a bath before dinner. And I'm a little boy. I don't want to take a bath.
Yeah.
Boo, right? So my mom is struggling with me to take my t-shirt off. I'm fighting. And she's looking at all the bruises and the cuts all over me. And she looks concerned, but then she gets to my left shoulder. And she says, oh my God, Johnny, what happened here? And I'm looking around. I'm like, Mom, I told you, Ultraman. She looked really sad. She looked really sad. And then she gave me a little kiss on the forehead. She said, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. A couple of days later, my dad is taking me to the doctor's. And as we're pulling into the parking lot, my dad looks at me and says, hey, listen, son, get in there. I don't want to hear anything about this Ultraman guy. Keep that to yourself. And, I love my dad. I, wasn't afraid of him, but I was okay. And of course, I'm 7. I have no idea of why this is important or not. And so I say, sure. And so we get in there, and the doctor is examining. Remember, this is a couple of days later, so the bruises are now kind of yellowing, and I'm healing. And then he gets to my shoulder, and he says, "Whoa, sport!" He says, "What the heck is this?" And I start to blur. Well, there was this guy. My dad is staring at me like he's staring holes through me. Once again, I date myself. Today people talk back to their parents all the time, but back then, your father gave you the look. You know what the heck the look meant. So I went, I don't know. I'm playing. I fell. I don't know. So he examined and asked me if it hurt, and then manipulated it, tried to see if there was fluid in it and this sort of thing. And then he gave me a lollipop and sent me on my way, right? So my dad is taking me back, and he's pulling into the driveway of my parents' home. And now he changes the timbre of his voice. He's very serious, and he says, well, listen, son, I never, ever want to hear about this Ultraman guy again. I want you to shut your darn mouth. I don't want you scaring your mother. I don't want you scaring your sister. You shut up and you keep that to yourself. Well, now, once again, I idolized my father, and I love him. And of course, now I almost feel like shame or guilt, like I did something wrong. I have no idea. So that compounded the weirdness of everything. And that's when the lies began. And so I lied about it my entire life. And people have asked me, they said, well, listen, well, what about when you're in high school and college and stuff like that? Well, I played a lot of sports in high school and college. And so, you're in the shower or whatever, and somebody goes, hey, Yost, what the heck's on with your shoulder? And so it's almost like muscle memory. You know what I mean? You don't think about putting on glasses in the morning or contacts. You just do it because that's what you do. And I would say things like, oh, I got bit by a shark, got hit by lightning. Yeah, somebody harpooned me. But watch what happened. In the matter of 3 seconds, they went, you're full of crap. And the discussion went away. Nobody ever followed up. Nobody pushed. And I would have rather thought I was an idiot or joking around than saying, hey, listen, when I was a kid, because by then I realized kind of the stigma of that sort of conversation. And so I lied about it my entire life and pushed it back in the back of your mind. I mean, I'm sure, ladies, you have something that's happened to you as a child that you push back there. You remember all the details, but it's not something like, okay, you wake up in the morning and, I better think about it right now. And I better think, no. But there are moments when it comes back to you, something reminds you of a smell or something reminds you, and you become emotional about it. You can remember all the details. That's the way it was for me. Because here's the thing. My film is not about aliens. It's about us. Because when those bright, shiny lights pop out, it's just us. It's just us. We have to make decisions as human beings. And we have to make decisions together. It can't just be one person. All these people with this ego crap, and I have no time for it. And all it does, if you think about it, I laugh about this. When I was a kid, I used to hear all this thing about like the original sin, right? The original sin. I was ticked off. I'm like, why am I have the original sin? But if you think about it, I think the original sin is ego. Because watch, ego makes us our own God. Because whatever I think is right, right? And screw you, and screw you, and screw you. I'm in control of everything. I know what to do, and I don't give a darn how you feel. And so watch this. This is the same kind of attitude that people have about aliens or Sasquatch. That can't exist. I've never seen it. So it does, wait a minute, wait. So you haven't seen it. So I always get a kick out of this. I would call people on other coasts and I say, hey, how's the weather? That's raining. No, it's not. It's not raining here. So it's not raining there. Doesn't exist. You're a liar. You're a crazy person, a crackpot. Put that tinfoil hat on. And they said, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. I said, yes, yes, it is.
And their response is?
Shut up, Yost.
Ah! Oh, well.
Shut up.
Sure. I love it.
Yeah.
What an incredible story and journey that you've been on. This is just incredible.
Yeah.
You had mentioned travel,
Mm,
interdimensional travel. What do you think
mm,
about that?
mm. I think there is more to experience than we as a species have given credit to. And so what I'll do is I'll tell you another little stupid story which will kind of illustrate what I'm trying to say. You know, hundreds of years ago, we were people of the earth, right? So we were hunters and gatherers. We, fished and we went into the woods. And there were always stories of little people and lights in the woods and hairy men and all these things. Okay. Well, you take one of these kids who all they understand is pressing a button, getting instant coffee, and pressing a button and talking to anybody in the world. And you put them in the woods some accidental time, and they see something and they go, oh my God, it's aliens. Well, I don't know that it is. I think it's a bucket of experience. And part of me truly believes that this type of intelligence, this type of consciousness in that particular situation has been with us since the very beginning, has kind of coexisted with humankind. And it's inherent to the planet. But that's a bucket of experience. And then I think also that we have to allow for the bucket of experience to say, look, there are things that all of us have encountered that is tech from our government or other governments. You know what? They said, oh, we haven't lied. No, we find out they kind of lied. And they've admitted they've lied. Okay. So there has to be that bucket of experience. But people have seen that and went, oh, aliens or Bigfoot or whatever. Okay, so there's that bucket. There's also the bucket of experience that says there are nuts and bolts craft coming here. People don't believe it? Here's an example. Look, do you know, I'm being facetious, do you know that we as a species send, we send all kinds of satellites throughout our solar system? We do. They're nuts and bolts. You know what we do there? We take pictures. Yes, we do. We take measurements. And I can guarantee you, if we found a three-headed elk, we would have Black Hawk helicopters come down, shoot it, tag it, and watch its migration. That's what we would do. But our egos cannot believe that anything would be smarter than us. Our egos prevent us from thinking that could ever be possible because we're the top of the food chain. So there's that bucket of experience. And there's also this interdimensional, transdimensional aspect. And I am not certain about identifying. And once again, I want to avoid falling in the trap of ego. We, not you ladies, but we as a species, we have this tremendous need to control. I know I used to suffer from it all the time. And we want to name things and we want to put identifiers on them because, and by the way, this is why I did it, it was to control my fear. If I can name it, I can fight it or I can kill it or whatever. And so we do that. I completely am convinced now that consciousness, that mind, that existence is not separate, but part and parcel of what we are experiencing here. That we are literally pushed into this experience and are experiencing it here, but most of us is back here. And so Is mind not interdimensional? Because it's not three-dimensional, and it passes through one dimension, two dimensions, three dimensions. So is that the fourth dimension? Is that the 12th dimension? I don't know. But what I'm a dogged investigator now, and so this is my search. So once again, I tell you that long, verbose diatribe to say I have no clue.
That's funny. I thought it was great.
Well, thank you very much for enduring
welcome.
that.
I know we only have like a few minutes left, but I have one other question for you. How many species do you think are out
My
there?
goodness. Well, you saw the film, so you know what I say. I say there's no way to tell. Look, in my story, in my film, I show the thing about Elon Musk landing on Mars. And out comes somebody from Kenya, somebody from Asia, somebody from Europe. Okay, and so a little Martian guy comes out and says, "Who's the Earthling?" Everybody looks different. They all have different agendas. They all have different backgrounds in evolution. And that's one ship, one planet. Okay, how big's the universe? Son of a gun. How many planets are there? How many have? There's no way to know. I have no idea. I'll just say this. In the film, we quote 82 species having some sort of contact with humankind. And those are the ones or the versions that we have been able to track down. But I don't know. Could it be more? Could it be less? Sure. But I mean, that was what the number was.
I know the listeners are
Thank
probably
you.
thinking, what do you think their agenda is? Are they all on the same page?
See, I don't think so. I don't think so. Just like us, look, we're all human beings. What's your agenda? What's that guy in the White House's agenda? What's that person over there's agenda? What's that person on the street's agenda? I don't know. I mean, is it military? Is it genetic? Is it sightseeing? Is it scientific? Is it all? But see, here's the thing. Two things can be true at once. I am tall and I am overweight. Those are two truths. So guess what? Two things can occupy the same space. So I think that the evidence shows that there's a huge genetic portion to this. I also think there's an evolutionary portion to this. I think there's some sort of spiritual aspect to this as well. And I think also that they're all bifurcated. I think there are just as many ones that might be service to others, meaning a positive force, as there are negative. And think about this. Look how complicated we are as people. I mean, you are three lovely people. Have you ever had an evil thought? Have you ever saw it? Have you ever
Never.
done this?
I'm
Never,
sorry.
never.
No.
I saw
No,
the
I'm just so
halo.
full
I
of it.
saw the halo.
Did you see
It's
it
being held
glowing?
up by those horns.
Oh, right.
Is that a look of recognition?
It might have been.
Might be, might be. So your filter fell off. No, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, so am I am I all good? Am I all bad? No, no, There were people who liked Hitler, for God's sake. You know what I mean? There were people like, yeah, he's cool. He doesn't, chase me around. Okay. So what does this mean? What does this really mean? And so what we have to do is I think as people, we have to do the impossible, which is step back and say, okay, look, let me chuck my opinions. Let me chuck my presuppositions. What is really happening? Let's take a look at the facts as they are. And I think therein lies the wisdom. If we are silent, if we can silence our own ego, I think we're going to find out. This is why
we have to have
you
him
and the
back for another show.
We might
Yeah.
have to because we are out of time. And I want
Oh,
you to
darn.
tell everybody where they can see your film. What is it called? Where is it?
Sure, thank you very much. The film is called Alien Abduction Answers. It's on Alien. It's on Alien. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on iTunes. It's on Apple TV. Also on the 29th, there is going to be an international pay-per-view event online, and so that'll be advertised everywhere.
Nice.
Is it on Tubi?
Yeah, sure.
Is it on Tubi? Okay, it's on Tubi. I was right
Sure.
about that then. Yes. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And this has been John Yost on Alien Abduction Answers. Check it out. Make sure to watch it. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you.